Welcome to Rise and Rediscover podcast. I'm Rachel. I'm a mom and a mindset coach. And this podcast is a platform for moms to rediscover themselves, navigate through rough times, celebrate wins, and all the other stuff in between. I inspire women to rise above challenges and look at the good in every situation and figure out how they can move on from them. Today's going to be a pretty heavy episode. I have my friend Vanessa here. I will introduce her in a moment. But I think a lot of us have been a victim of substance abuse, whether we were the person with the problem or a family member, loved one. So there was a research done by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and it revealed that at least 1 in 8 children have lived with at least one parent with a substance abuse problem. And again, that's just what was reported, as Vanessa and I were just speaking about. So those numbers probably are higher. And I myself as a child, had multiple family members with substance abuse problems as I was growing up. So it was a big part of my upbringing. Some of them have recovered, some of them didn't. So, it's going to be an interesting conversation to have today. So let me introduce Vanessa. Vanessa is a wife, a mom of 5 boys, owner of Salon V Beauty Lounge, aspiring author, and I have already read half of her book she sent me, and a sobriety coach. And she also likes to refer to herself as a
hope dealer.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be sitting with you.
Yeah, I think it's great.
You do so many good things, so I'm happy to be part of that.
Vanessa and I go way back. We worked together many years ago. We're both hairdressers. And so we've kept in contact off and on. We haven't really spent a lot of time together until recently when she shared her story, and it inspired me to want to bring her on here because I think her story is pretty amazing, and she's a pretty amazing woman to have gotten through it. So
thank you.
I'm excited to have you.
Thank you.
So Vanessa, floor is yours.
It's funny because you say that, it's an amazing story. And I think of it so differently. And I think part of why I like to talk about my story is that I think it's pretty typical. And I don't think that I'm very different from so many other, especially women who have dealt with alcohol problems. So my story, I guess, starts with being 15 years old, picking up alcohol for the first time, and falling madly in love with it. And I drank very heavily for 21 years. And my story really is that I tried to stop drinking many times on my own, and I just couldn't. And I always say being a suburban mom is the best cover-up for being somebody who, either if you refer to yourself as an alcoholic, somebody with problem drinking, whatever, because I could just hide right in plain sight. And I was part of mommy wine culture, and I was drinking all the time and justifying it. So finally, at the age of 36, I had the life I always dreamed of, and I was about ready to lose it all because of my drinking. It was just time for a change. And I guess I hit, for me, my rock bottom, and I made the decision to stop, and that was, I guess, the beginning of the journey. I hate that word. It was the beginning. So it's been 5.5 years since I have had a drink, and a whole life opened up in front of me. And I do like being able to share that with other people, especially other moms who might feel alone or immersed in that like mommy wine culture and feeling like everyone around them is drinking and not knowing how to stop.
Well, congratulations on the 5.5 years. That's a huge step. I mean, like I said, I know, of people that I've loved very much have struggled with this illness. I believe it's an illness that you can beat. Yeah. It's not easy, as I'm sure you know, but it's an illness that affects people. So I'm really proud of you.
Thank you
for making it through to this point.
Thank you. I've always struggled with what belief I subscribe to. Mm-hmm. If it's an illness, if it's a disease, if it's a character defect. And I don't really know what I think. Mm-hmm. I just think that the alcohol or the drugs or the whatever it is it's a symptom of something greater. Mm-hmm. So I think that, people tend to think like, oh, you stopped drinking. And it's like, yes, I stopped drinking, But a lot happened after that. It was a lot of soul searching, a lot of really getting in touch with the reasons why I was doing drinking like that. So for me now, it's like, I still don't know how I feel about that, but I know it's just a lifestyle change.
I think, I remember growing up, my dad was an alcoholic. He's been in recovery for over 30 years. So I'm grateful for that. But my whole childhood, that's how I remember him a lot. And I remember people telling me, and I don't know if this is true, and I tried to find, so I researched to try and find proof of this, and I couldn't find it. So apparently it's probably not true. But someone told me one of 4 of your children born to an alcoholic will become one. So
well, I really hope that's not true.
I know it's not true.
But
so I did the opposite yes. as you, where I stayed away from it. I was petrified to be that one, because there's 4 of us.
Right.
So I was petrified to be that one.
Right. And I mean, there are absolutely factors like your genetics, your, being predisposed to it for sure, that can and will affect, your chances. Like you and I we've had this discussion. You could hand us both a drink. We could each have that drink, and my brain is going to do something totally different than what your brain is going to do. So is that being predisposed? Is it a disease? I don't know.
Right. It's funny. I listened to Matthew Perry's book. Yes. I listened on Audible. I didn't read it, but I enjoyed listening to it because it was him reading his book, and the way he described his beginning of his trouble with drugs and alcohol was he was in a field with 2 of his friends about 18 years old, and they were drinking and drinking. He said his 2 friends were passed out sick. He said, and he felt like there was just liquid gold going through his body. And that's when he knew this wasn't good.
Yeah, I write about the very first time I drank at 15 and how, it was so terrible. Like what I tasted was so terrible. I didn't know how to make a drink properly. And so it was basically just like straight vodka, and how terrible it tasted, but how that instant, like my whole life changed, and I just wanted more of the effect. It had nothing to do with the taste. It was just that feeling that then unfortunately I continued to go after for many, many, many years. But that may not be for everybody.
Again, like I said, and you said, I think it affects people differently. Right. I can have one drink and not feel well because my body just isn't used to it. I don't drink. I don't, because of my childhood, I went to the extreme where my siblings did. My brother struggles with addiction and alcohol abuse, but my sisters and I are very different. They love to drink wine. They don't have a problem. They can drink it socially. They have wine at their house. I went the extreme opposite and when I met my husband, I told him when I was 17 years old, and I said, we will never have alcohol in our home unless we're having a party, or because I don't think it's bad for people if you want to do it socially. That's not, and I don't judge anyone, but for me, I was so afraid.
Well, nobody is above addiction.
No, it does not discriminate.
Equal opportunity destroyer.
Yes.
And it does not matter your education, your wealth, your status. It can and it does affect so many different walks of life. So
I love what you said also about living in this, mommy, wine world.
Yes.
And in my history, it was all men in my family. Yeah. And I think in a lot of people, when you hear one of the parents is an alcoholic, a lot of people will think it's the dad.
Yes.
I think men, it's stigmatized.
Yes.
Because I think women hide it better.
Well, and even when you go way back to the beginning of, say, AA, it was for men. It was for, middle to upper class men, business professionals who were struggling with alcohol. And, the role of a woman in AA back in, the 20s, 30s was to, be supportive of your husband. And there was never really any talk about women having an alcohol problem. That I think it was, and I don't think that means it didn't exist. I think it means it just wasn't talked about. And I don't think that it's been talked about all that much until recent years.
Yeah, I agree with that. So tell me a little bit about how you started your recovery.
Boy, so like I said, I knew I was just about on the brink of losing everything. My husband, my children. It was just a really ugly place. And I finally woke up one morning after a disaster I had created, and I knew alcohol was the problem. And I think I knew for many years. I've always been a writer. So I look back to years, I think 5 years before I stopped drinking, a letter I had written to alcohol filing for a divorce. When I read it, it's a very painful letter to read because I'm so aware of how alcohol was affecting my life negatively. And I was aware of the control that it had over me. And sadly, it took 5 more years from writing that to stop. But when I finally stopped, I didn't think I'd be able to stop. So I told no one. And anyone who knows me knows I'm a pretty open book. But I first went to the AA website, and there was like a quiz, maybe 10 questions. Are you an alcoholic? And I like to be a high achiever, but I scored like 100 on that test. And I was kind of like, oh, damn. Okay. I have to do something. So I started sneaking around, going to AA meetings. And that was a time in my life that keeps me from ever picking up a drink again. I think back to how much of a, can we swear?
Sure.
Mind fuck that period of my life was, because I realized I was the problem and that I really need to get a hold of it. So I went to AA meetings for a bit before I told anybody. And again, I didn't tell anybody because I thought, well, if I go and I tell people, then I have to follow through. And follow through isn't really my strong suit in life. So I thought, if I don't tell anyone and then I just go back to drinking, it's like I'm not a failure because nobody knows I tried. And how can I let them know I'm going? Fail, because then they'll say, well, you love alcohol more than you love your family, which isn't true, but that's the kind of nature of the beast. So I started going to AA. I started kind of working with a sponsor a little bit. And I did that for a while, even though I knew it wasn't really I could see that I didn't really fit there. Mm-hmm. I didn't subscribe to all the theories, but I went along with it because I was grateful for all the support I got there. I always will say AA helped save my life. The people in there were selfless. They were amazing. And then COVID hit, and that was tough. It was still early enough in my journey of sobriety, and I was home with like 100 kids, and it was madness, but I got through. And I started doing a lot of inner work and kind of like trying to reconnect and figure out things that worked for me other than AA. And I honestly found that helping other people in sobriety, who were struggling, helped me. So I would post things online about getting sober, staying sober, and people would reach out to me. And then it just became almost like addicting to me to help other people. And I started doing a lot of writing, and that's kind of where I am today. I did end up being certified as a professional recovery coach, mostly just because I'm a nerd, and I really wanted to know that if I was going to help people, that it wasn't that I was just speaking from experience, but I had a little bit of real knowledge too.
Well, I'll tell you, I think experience trumps knowledge.
I would agree.
Most times.
I would agree.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's like going to a male gynecologist. Like, it just never really, it's not fair.
No.
They don't get it.
No. It's funny you say that. I have a funny story about that. My first visit when I was pregnant with Ava, with Tucker, I had a midwife, had no drugs, had a horrific experience, and I knew I wasn't doing that again. So when I found out I was pregnant for her, I went to a doctor, a male doctor, who I get a lot of people referred me to. And he was so funny. The first thing he said to me when I walked in was, so what's your plan? Because you are way more experienced at this than I am.
Oh, I love that.
So, he made it really, he just was really down to earth and real. And he had said to me once, because I had no drugs with my with my son, he said, would you have a tooth pulled without Novocaine? I said, no. He said, there's no reason to have a baby with an epidural. I said, and that's why I'm here. But it just, it kind of went off topic. But it's just true. Funny how.
Yeah, when I started putting myself out there a bit more and decided that I wanted to start coaching people in their journey. Somebody who was very close to me, who I love very much, said to me, but like, well, why would they listen to you? And I was like, wow, thank you so much for feeding my imposter syndrome. But why not? You could go and sit with somebody who maybe has a PhD in psychology, who has read a lot about sobriety, getting sober, addiction, who maybe has no experience, or I can tell you exactly what it feels like and help you navigate through that because I've been there. So
yeah, I think to me
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Have you ever had, and this is personal, if you don't want to answer it, that's fine, but I understand. Have you ever had a conversation with your boys about, substance abuse?
Yes, I have been.
I know some are little, so.
They are. So, like, my youngest doesn't have any recollection of me drinking. My two older boys, I unfortunately remembered me drunk at times. There would be times I'd wake up and have to apologize to them for things I said or my behavior. And maybe they didn't realize it was alcohol induced, but I'm sure that they put two and two together. They're very smart kids. But my three younger ones, who are 6, 9, and 11, I'm pretty open about it. Like, one time one of my boys said not long ago, "Oh my God, Mom, you're drinking and driving." I literally had a Sprite or something. And I was like, "No, that has to be alcohol." And he's like, "Are you drinking it alcohol?" And I said, "No, I don't drink alcohol and it's been a long time." And, then the conversation opens about why. And I'm pretty open about it. I drank a lot. It made me not healthy. It made me make poor decisions. And, there are a lot of things that I did while drinking that I'm not proud of, but I'm okay to share. I drank and drove with my kids in the car. And had I opened up the newspaper and seen an article about some woman driving with her kids drunk in the car, I would have been appalled. But I was doing it. And somehow I justified, wasn't that bad. Or so, like, I definitely did things I'm not proud of. And I'm able to tell them that and say, they'll say, so-and-so drinks alcohol. And I'm like, right. And, some people are able to without a problem, not me, and my husband, when I stopped drinking, he stopped drinking. And it was more for him, like, he didn't have a problem. So for him, it was kind of like, all right, whatever, no big deal. So I'm able to say, Dad doesn't drink just because he doesn't like it or he doesn't care about it. I don't drink because I'm afraid if I start to drink again, I won't be able to stop. Which now I don't know if that's true, but I'm not going to test it.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to be open. I think that's part of my goal, is to break the stigma of it being like this hush hush thing.
I agree. I think there is a stigma, especially around women.
Yes.
Especially around women.
Yes.
And I think a lot of women hide it. Because I think, especially mothers, because I think we have so much that we're in control of that we have to do on a day-to-day basis, that if we're having that,
reward at the end of the night, it's not only expected, but it's encouraged. It's like all the time I'll be places and people who don't know me or don't know that I don't drink will say things like, "Oh my gosh, you have your hands full. Oh, bet you can't wait to go home and have a glass of wine or have a drink." And it's like, I was the person saying that. I was the person sitting at the ball field with a cup that said, "There's a chance this is vodka," and people would laugh, but joke's on you, it is. I participated in life with alcohol as my sidekick. There really wasn't any part of my life that alcohol wasn't invited to. So I understand, and I try not to, I don't judge other people who say things like that or think like that, but it almost just makes me kind of sad. Because It's like, I think of all the life events that we invite alcohol to, that I write this in my book about, the most important events in our lives that we hope to remember forever, we invite alcohol to, and we blur our memories. And I don't do that anymore. So I'm very present, sometimes, too present, but, very present, and I'm able to always remember. Every morning when I wake up, whether I'm proud of the way I behaved the day before or not, I remember everything. There's no question.
And that must be big when you've lived so many years not remembering.
That is huge. There were many mornings waking up, laying there thinking, what did I do? What did I say? What did I post? What did I, What did I buy? And I know that sounds silly, but like, damn, I would wake up to an Amazon cart and I'm like, my goodness, like I drunk shopped again. So definitely more aware of what I do, say, think. and feel. I did say when I stopped drinking, like my line was, now I have to feel and deal. I don't get to like numb out and deal with it. It's like I'm feeling it and I have to deal.
Right. Which is hard, I'm sure. Or it was hard.
It's getting easier, but yes, it was very hard when, my entire teenage and adult life, my one staple coping mechanism was just to drink. I drank when I was happy, when I was sad, when I was depressed, when I was all the time. So yeah, it became like, holy shit, now I have all these feelings and like, what am I supposed to do with these? I have to actually deal with them, feel and deal.
Well, which is a good thing that you're a writer because you can put them right on paper, right?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about the book you're writing.
The book is a bit of a makeup of part of my story and a program I've created called Revamp, which is a guide for people who are trying to get sober, to a guide to sobriety and really to creating a lifestyle that doesn't include alcohol, or for people who are looking to change their behavior or their relationship with alcohol. So I'm not somebody who says like, okay, you have to stop drinking. Mm-hmm. That's not my call. I don't get to make that call. Some people who I know who I've helped a bit, who have said, well, I just want to have cut down and then realized that they don't need that in their lives anymore. So it's really to just help people navigate, especially the early stages of sobriety, because like I said, it is a mind fuck and it is heavy and it is messy. And I would sit in meetings and hear about like the sober lifestyle is so amazing and I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I'm like, we are not feeling the same. Like this cannot be real. So I really try to put a little bit of humor in it, keep it a little bit light and deal hope.
It's funny, when I was reading your book, that's exactly how I felt like you were talking to me.
Yes,
I felt
very
like it was very real. I felt like it was light. It was funny. It just takes the heaviness out of something that's very heavy.
Yes. And it's funny because it is heavy, but I think part of my goal in writing it is it doesn't have to be. And I didn't know that then. So it's like all the things that I kind of wish I knew then, I'm trying to share to make it easier. There'll be parts about things to say when people are offering you a drink. And like adults are really big peer pressurers. I mean, I recently had somebody say to me something about, getting drunk together, in a group, whatever. And I was like, oh, I don't drink. And the response was like, oh, sorry to hear that. And, I'm not sorry because I don't behave in a way that embarrasses me anymore. Okay, that's not true. Sometimes I totally embarrass myself, but
at least
you know you're
embarrassing yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. My kids would be like, no, she's so embarrassing. When I tell them that I have skibbity riz. Yeah, not cool. So I can definitely still embarrass myself, but with a clear mind. But yeah, it can be really heavy. And I think what makes it so heavy is feeling like you have to do it alone or secretly, or the shame, the embarrassment, the guilt. And like, that's what I'm trying to help people be like, it doesn't matter. And like, you're not a product of decisions you made before. You can wallow in that. You can be like, oh, but I did this and I have so much shame and guilt. Or you can be like, okay, it's time to be a badass bitch and move on. That's not who I am anymore. I'm definitely not the same version of myself that I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. And I really hope I'm not the same version of myself now that I will be a year from now. I'm trying to always grow and level up.
I will tell you, you are an inspiration in so many ways to me. I think you level up daily from what I see and what you're accomplishing and what you're doing and how much passion you're putting into helping other people. Some people get the help, they keep it to themselves and that's okay. But I love to see somebody who has been there, knows what these people are going through, and just wants to be a guide.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like I don't mind being vulnerable if it helps somebody. And the first time that every year on my sobriety date, March 12th, I share the same post that I shared the first year. That is like, because I never said anything to anybody in that first year publicly. I mean, people in my life knew, but I was very quiet about it. And I shared a post and I share it every year. And the first time somebody messaged me and said, your story is my story. And like, basically I need help. She's still sober. I think she's coming up on 5 years now. She's somebody special in my life who has helped me when I've struggled in my sobriety. Even when she messaged me and I started to help guide her, something ignited in me that I was like, this is my purpose. So the struggle that I had is so worth it to help some other people.
And I think we're put on this earth. I truly believe we're given a path. We don't know what it is. We don't know what detours are going to be put in our place, but we're given a path for some reason, and shit's going to happen, but there's a reason it's happening. And a lot of times it's to better yourself at the end of it, or to better someone else.
Which I think when you're helping better someone else, you're helping better yourself.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah. And, I've been asked before, like, are you embarrassed? Are you ashamed, like, to tell people? And I have said 1,000 times, I would be so much more embarrassed to have the knowledge and the ability to help somebody else than I am of anything that I did, said, or how I was before. That would embarrass me, to be armed with that and keep it to myself. And again, I respect that some people are very private about that.
Yeah,
totally respect that. I'm an open book, so it wouldn't have served me to not serve others.
And I agree that this happened so you could serve others.
I do too.
And all the situations you put yourself in that were unsafe.
Yes.
Or your kids that were unsafe.
Yes.
There's a reason why.
It truly amazes me sometimes when I think that the fact that, like, I never got arrested, I never hurt anyone physically. It's the only reason I can see is that I needed to get to where I am so I could help other people and have some fun with it, because I think, like, one of my biggest fears when I stopped drinking was like, wait a second, I've always been the life of the party. What now? What? Like, I'm just going to be boring? Like, what am I supposed to do when I go places and I don't drink? So, like, all these things people feel when they stop. I literally felt like my life was going to be over. And I had said, and I meant, I would have rather given up years of my life than stop drinking. And I meant that. Like, that wasn't even a question. I was like, oh my God, yeah, like, no doubt. That's crazy to me now.
Right.
But it just fuels my purpose, to help other people understand that your life is not over. My life, really, second part of my life began when I made this decision and started on this path. Because I'm not going to say journey anymore.
Yeah. So many people don't like that word, but we need to find another word that
I know.
That's good for journey. Yeah, that could be something we could work on. All right, let's end with, I'd love for you to say to our listeners that are struggling or that are where you were, that are hearing this and are ready to get help, give them a little bit of advice.
So cliche. On my 5th year anniversary of getting sober, I always do something for myself. I got tattoos on my wrists that say "This too shall pass." I know that sounds so cliche. Those words helped get me through so much, and they still do. Whatever you're feeling right now is temporary. It does not have to be forever. And everything that comes with struggle, you can find good in the struggle. Take it one day at a time. Reach out to somebody who can help. I'm happy to help anybody who needs help, and just believe in yourself. Because I believe in everybody who wants to make these changes, that it's possible, and it doesn't have to be something that you do alone. There's no shame in trying to make changes, and I believe in people, and I know that with the proper help and with a good attitude, it's possible to make the changes, and life is so much better. And that's so annoying to hear when you're trying.
I know.
It's like, oh my God, yeah, Vanessa, but like, you had 5+ years. Of course you can say that. I remember sitting in meetings, listening to people who had 90 days and me thinking, I'll never get to 90 days. I'll never get to 6 months. Like, I didn't believe in myself. And if I could go back and say, just stop beating yourself up. Like, just try, And I guess one quote I love that I would end with is, your track record is flawless because you've already survived 100% of your bad days.
I love that.
I love that too. I wish I could take credit for that, and I don't know who the credit goes to.
So many good
That was a
quotes.
great quote.
It's a great
But
quote.
you know, you've already gotten through your hard days, so you can do hard things. I tell my kids that you can do hard things, and the outcome will be better. Not easy,
no,
but
never
better.
Easy,
but worth it.
What is important and worth it is never easy.
True.
While you're doing the work, eventually it becomes easy because you put the work in.
Right. It becomes a habit. Like, I do not go to the gym. I don't understand the people who go to the gym. My husband runs literally ultra marathons, and he is in the habit of waking up every day at like ridiculous times in the morning, like 3:00 in the morning, and running. It doesn't matter if it's raining, if it's snowing, like it doesn't matter. It's a habit. He gets into it. He intermittent fasts. He does all the things. And, you know, you don't see the result the first time you do that.
Right.
But over years, you know, his agility, his abilities have all, they're strong now because he put the time and the consistency in. And I think with sobriety, it's the same thing. You're not going to feel great on day one. You're definitely not.
And I think there's so many different levels of it too. There's, you know, people who drink every single day, can't go a day without it. And there's people that maybe just drink on weekends, but still they can't control it when they drink on the weekend, even though during the week they're fine.
Right.
So I think people are at all different levels.
Yes.
And if you say to yourself, you know, a friend said to me whose son was struggling with it, and she said, if it affects your family, your work, or your life, then it's a problem. And I think that's the truth. And
really, your family, your friends, those people can tell you have a problem.
Right.
And they're probably right if they are, but you can really only make the change when you're ready. And I will say that a lot of people would say to me, like, you can only get sober for yourself. That was something I would hear a lot.
I loved when you said this to me because I felt that way. So explain that.
You know, you can only get sober for yourself. Like, you have to do it for yourself. If you're trying to do it for somebody else, you're never going to sustain that. And that was one theory that, you know, in AA, and again, I'm not knocking AA at all. AA is an amazing program that has helped many people, but I could not subscribe to that theory. I did not love myself enough to stop for myself. I loved my family enough to stop. So they became my why. You know, over time, it's also for me that I stay sober. But so that's another bit of advice I would give to people. If you cannot see making these changes for yourself, find a person, a place, a thing, something that's worth it to you, and start there.
That's great advice. I love that. I really do love that because I did subscribe to that theory until you explained it that way. And my subscription is ended. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much. And I'm gonna put in the show notes. Vanessa also has a TikTok called the Sobriety Buzz that has some really great things on it. I've been following her, and so if you're struggling, great. See,
hopefully coming out
when it's done.
When it's done,
no pressure. When it's done, it will be out. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I loved having you. And I believe this episode is going to reach ears that needed it to reach.
I hope so.
And we may be flooded with calls from people who need you in their life. And we'll get together and make that happen. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And I think, you know, we got a lot of great things to come. But to me, this is probably one of my most special episodes because it is such an issue in our world today and in families. And, you know, having somebody come on here and speak her truth and say how she got through it, I think will help a lot of people. So thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.